First question people ask me about the book is, what cities? I won't keep you in suspense. They are Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Alexandria, Louisiana, Boise, Idaho, Sitka, Alaska, Youngstown, Ohio, Jacksonville, Florida, and Portland, Maine. I also feel compelled to say that it's definitely not about Berkeley, Boulder, or Brooklyn. Not that I don't love those places. It's just that I wanted to demonstrate that food was making a difference everywhere in the USA, even in places you may have never heard of. What became obvious from the start for me was the way that food is a big part of every place's identity and its quality of life. It often made a critical contribution to the recovery of cities that were battered by recessions and the disappearance of manufacturing. In the communities that I visited, people were using food to bring Rust Belt cities back to life and to fight opioid addiction and even address racial and ethnic divides. I also noticed something in all 7 cities that was not apparent 10 years ago. Every city had a farmer's market, farm-to-table restaurants, brew pubs and microbrews. Some had distilleries and wineries. There were locally owned coffee shops and roasters, farm-to-school programs. One had a fisheries-to-school program, food pantries and food banks, and food co-ops and natural grocers. There were also nonprofits and government programs supporting new businesses and providing access to locally grown food for lower-income residents. That all of this has become so prevalent in American cities today is nothing short of astounding. And not surprisingly, climate change was on everyone's lips. Whether food organizations in Florida were preparing for the next hurricane that would cut them off from supermarkets and roads, or Native Alaskans who were pushing back against warming water temperatures and overfishing of their subsistence foods, and communities and even policymakers were at least considering the connection between food security and global warming. Being the group kind of guy that I am, I was actually surprised by how often individuals were the catalysts for change in all the communities I visited. It led me to question some of the food movement's underlying assumptions that social, economic, and political conditions were the determinants of change. While I respect the importance of those factors, of course, public policy remaining one of the primary elements of importance in the food world, little changes in a place unless one person sticks out their neck and tries to start a new business or a new nonprofit or some kind of public initiative. In the same way we take food for granted in this country because it's so cheap, we take its community economic impact for granted as well. But the value of local food has grown from $400 million annually in the early 90s to over $20 billion today. Just in my own hometown of Santa Fe, New Mexico, with a population of 150,000, we generate nearly $1 billion of economic food activity each year. Typically, city, county, and state governments have undervalued the food system as an economic engine. Just one example of how that is changing was found in all places, Boise, Idaho, a blue island in the sea of red. There I found Boise City Council President Elaine Clegg, a political leader who understands how food and farming can make a difference to a place's quality of life. She and her husband raised 5 children, all of whom learned how to shop for food and prepare family meals. She got her feet wet as an environmental activist, then moved on to elected office where she has led numerous initiatives to promote sustainable development, food businesses, and a healthy food environment. Food is a means to many ends, not the least of which are satiety, pleasure, and nutritional well-being. But it also punches above its weight with economic development, mending wounds that stem from the history of racism in this country, and building social capital. When we look around the country, we find that vibrant food scenes are now the new normal. But even more important, and this is where I tend to get philosophical, food offers us a sense of completeness. Our lives can feel immensely satisfying when we look to the immediate world around us for our sustenance, and when we take responsibility as well for ensuring that all are fed well. Of course, fast food and convenience shopping are the antithesis of what I'm advocating. Not only do they breed ill health, they alienate us from each other and nature. Eating locally and sustainably brings joy. Taking care of our own fulfills our commitment to community. Simply put, food is a gateway to personal and social change.